I mean, I'm sure you get hundreds of scripts. Like, what was it about this script that made you want to do this movie?
You know, it was the first thing really was that the director, John Curran, I did this film called The Painted Veil with him, and I enjoyed that experience with him so much, and I liked what he did with the film so much that a big part of the pull to me was that John was directing it, and I think he's so smart, and he always digs at themes that are interesting and complicated, and so that was the first thing that pulled me in. But then some of it was that it'll sound weird, but part of it was that I couldn't tell what this character was of this prisoner. And sometimes when I thought, oh, I'm not right for this, I don't get it. But sometimes I've learned when I feel that way, I'll probably have an interesting experience. So.
Right. Well, speaking of, you couldn't really feel the character. Okay, I kind of want to talk about the underlying meaning of Stone, because whenever I left the theater, I was just like, it kind of left me with a lot of questions, not just about the movie, but in life in general, and I kind of was thinking, it was about, kind of these demons that we all have inside of us, and that they can kind of eat away at our life. And am I even on the right track?
I think 100%. I wish you could go promote the film instead of me, because I think, like, if John was here, he'd be falling over dead. He'd be so happy. I think it's like that's exactly how I related to it, in the sense that I think it is not just about my character or De Niro's character. It's all the two women, their two wives.
Right.
It's very much about, I think, people who are all in a little bit of a spiritual crisis. They're like, one is in prison, literally, and he's desperate for freedom and has to figure out how to be free inside himself. I think the others are outside, but in a bad marriage.
Right.
De Niro's character is trying to confront the fact that he's losing faith in God.
Right.
He's drinking too much. There is very much about people on different, sort of like journeys in their spiritual life, and I think it is tense and it is exciting, and there is, of course, this notion that they might be manipulating him, so you can't tell exactly whether what he's going through is authentic. But John, I think, to your point, John said to us all, he said, if I want people to walk out of the film with questions rolling all through their head, like about what was real, what are the consequences of not being honest about what you're feeling inside, and I love that a lot of filmmakers just won't do that. They feel insecure and they feel they need to explain everything, and I admire that he's willing to leave you with those questions.
Something I found also was really interesting is that your character Stone and Robert De Niro's character Jack kind of seem to switch places, almost. Not, we viewed, Stone as kind of the bad guy that's in prison and has, deserves to be there, and that Jack is kind of this great, seems to be like the good guy. And then by the end, it's like we view them both in an opposite light.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite things. When I read it, I thought they're going to manipulate him, and the prisoner's the bad guy. But as it went, it was just as you said. It was like this guy who seems desperate, and like when you first meet him, he seems like the furthest person in the world from having a spiritual transformation. So
right.
He's kind of here, and the other guy's here judging him, and by the end, they've kind of gone like this, and by the end, you almost feel like Stone is trying to help him.
Right, yeah. Exactly. And I even saw that, I noticed that even in like the transformation, how he started out. Stone started with the cornrows, and then, it just was really neat. So I also heard that you've kind of made a few changes to the script.
Well, John did. The script was originally set in the South. It was set in North Carolina, I think, and John had a really strong desire to set it in Detroit. He wanted to confront some of the economic downturn and the collapse of certain American industries, and almost like mirror the collapse that's going on in De Niro's character. And so once we moved it up to Detroit, it had to have a different kind of patina to it, and the other thing was that when we went into the prisons and started talking to the guys, for me, the language, the way they talk was so different from what was in the script that like 60 or 70% of what comes out of my mouth in the film we got off these prisoners.
Yeah.
There's this one guy. There's a line that almost always gets a really big laugh when my character feels that he's offended the officer, and he says, like, I'm just gonna be a vegetarian. I don't want.
Oh my gosh.
I don't want to have beef with anybody. And it came because I was talking to this one prisoner, and he was talking about how he hadn't fought back when he got attacked recently. And I said, why? He said, I've got 3 months to go. I can't get any infractions. I can't get anything. And he said, so when you're close to getting out, you got to be a vegetarian. And I said, what? And he said, you can't have beef with nobody. And I was like, that's so good.
Yeah.
I'm sitting
Write
there
that
going,
down.
Anything else?
Right.